On Thursday, sacked FBI boss James Comey gave his much-anticipated testimony on the alleged ties between Donald Trump and Russia and the circumstances of Comey's firing. During 3 hours of questioning, he claimed the president had demanded loyalty from him. Caleb Morpin reports.
In the aftermath of James Comey's testimony, we have Donald Trump's lawyer coming forward and essentially contradicting quite a bit of what was said by James Comey in his testimony, pointing out that Comey was never asked for loyalty. He's also saying that at no point did Donald Trump ask him to drop the Michael Flynn investigation. Now, furthermore, we have him essentially accusing Comey of leaking privileged information to the press.
My judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square, and so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter.
Although Mr. Comey testified that he only leaked the memos in response to a tweet, the public record reveals that the New York Times was quoting from those memos the day before the referenced tweet, which belies Mr. Comey's excuse for this unauthorized disclosure of privileged information and appears to be entirely retaliatory.
There are things that Mr. Comey said which later on, remember, he's under oath, and one could argue prior inconsistent statements might be tantamount to perjurious testimony regarding how he was inspired in the middle of the night to write this memorandum, when in fact the New York Times, it was shown, had basically reported this prior to this. This was a minefield that Mr. Comey, who was, I thought, a lot smarter than this, he just opened himself up to a can of potential juridical worms.
James Comey made a point of saying that he had been defamed by Donald Trump, and saying that not just he, but the entire Federal Bureau of Investigation, the entire FBI, had also been defamed by the president.
And although the law required no reason at all to fire an FBI director, the administration then chose to defame me, and more importantly the FBI, by saying that the organization was in disarray, that it was poorly led, that the workforce had lost confidence in its leader. Those were lies, plain and simple.
Nowhere in his testimony does he say that he believes the president was obstructing justice. He draws no conclusion about what kind of pressure the president was putting on him to, quote, stop the investigation on Flynn. That's not the case. He asked him if he could see through it, see past it. He hoped that he could see past it. And I think that the testimony, whereas it's flashy wording in a 7-page statement, I think it falls very short of any type of impeachment talk that may be surfacing on Capitol Hill.
Well, Trump took to Twitter to dismiss Comey's claims as false, but nonetheless interpreted them as complete vindication. He later said he was 100% ready to testify under oath about his conversations with the former FBI director. Prior to the hearing, Comey had made notes on his controversial meetings with the president.
What was it about that meeting that led you to determine that you needed to start putting down a written record?
A combination of things. I think the circumstances, the subject matter, and the person I was interacting with.
I first met then President-elect Trump in a conference room at Trump Tower in New York. At the conclusion of that briefing, I remained alone with the President-elect to brief him on some personally sensitive aspects of the information assembled during the assessment. The President had invited me to dinner that night. It turned out to be just the two of us, seated at a small oval table in the center of the green room. A few moments later, the President said, "I need loyalty. I expect loyalty." We simply looked at each other in silence. When the door by my grandfather clock closed and we were alone, the President began by saying, "I want to talk about Mike Flynn." He then said, "He is a good guy. I hope you can let this go." I replied only that, "He is a good guy." I did not say I would let this go. The President called me. He said, "I have been very loyal to you, very loyal. We had that thing, you know." That was the last time I spoke with President Trump.